Welcome to Higher Thought Storytime number 6. And I want to call this Let Me Make Sure You Heard Me Correctly. Or I should have called it Let Me Clear My Throat. And it was honestly Spirit kind of setting me aside. The weirdest thing happened to me in this meditation this particular day. I can't even remember exactly what I well actually yeah I was watching a video. I think it was a video from the Happy Cancer. Okay. And while that was the message, that was the reading I was supposed to watch today during this meditation. Because when I watch tarot, I don't really, sometimes I'll stop and look at the cards if something comes up interesting that I need to pay attention to, or I want to see what deck they're working with. But for the most part, as I'm listening to the message, I pay attention to the thoughts, the kind of side meditation that runs along in my mind. It's like spirit multitasking almost, but it's just the way it works for me. But spirit showed out on me this day because as I was watching the video, it got to a point where all of a sudden my meditation, I zoned out so completely that I wound up having to go back and listen to the reading a couple times to get the full message of the reading. But it took me in three separate, it like, I, my thoughts veered off in a direction and then came back to the reading, went off in another direction, came back to the reading, went off in a third direction. And genuinely, none of those topics had a whole lot at the time, I didn't think, to do with what I was hearing at this particular part of this reading. But it was literally like Spirit was fine tuning my clairaudience is like, okay, you hear us, so you always work. And I do. I'm often concerned, especially with medicated meditations, how much is really me hearing thoughts, or how much of it is the cannabis and me just being fanciful and that sort of thing. But they made it very, very clear because the topics were related and they had things to do with like what's going on with me, what's going on with my path in life, some of the things that have kind of held that up, and what's getting ready to happen. But the the way the redirects happened, like I said, it was absolutely not anything that I was consciously focused on, because I was just sitting down to listen to the reading, and now I can't even hear the reading because I'm hearing this so loudly. And then let me get back and listen to the reading. But now I'm off in another completely opposite direction. So much so that I understood that no, they're letting me know, no, you are hearing us. Stop doubting yourself. You know the difference between a crazy thought or even a sane thought, whatever. You know a difference between a self-generated thought. You can hear the difference between a self-generated thought and a thought that we're sending you. And so I thought that was kind of interesting because I had never had or been aware of it. Sometimes your mind will just wander off into different things, but this wasn't like that. This was me genuinely trying to focus on one thing and then like radically being pulled in another direction and being brought back, like Spirit was just showing, like, let me show you what we can really do. You think it's you, it's not really you. Watch this kind of energy. And so, yeah, but it was interesting because the three different directions that the meditations went in less than 24 hours, the reading that I was led to basically confirmed all three question marks, or if you will, in all three different areas. Further confirmations of some of the stuff I kind of sort of knew, but one thing in particular I still had a question about, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But wait a minute, let me see what we got here. Oh, okay, I might be able to get into it now. Um, she basically, the reader that I was kind of gobsmacked about, like I said, she's read in my energy a lot before, but she was talking about being in this rebirth, being on the edge of the real thing. May have had false starts or whatever, but where spirit is leading you now, where it's headed from, and the fact that part of the reason why it's been so difficult is because of spell work being done on the side. Now, again, that was not something that I was comfortable with, but I started getting a hint of it. I saw it in my cards a little over a year ago that potentially someone was doing spell work on my divine counterpart. I asked the question, but I wasn't entirely sure. Um, and it's a little bit past my area of expertise to suss that kind of stuff out on that level. But a few months ago, a sister came from my soul tribe. She was led to me because I connected some spiritual dots about some of the ancient texts and the Anunnaki and that sort of thing for her. But we struck up an actual friendship, and in the course of us talking and then me doing personal readings for her and things like that, us audio calling and whatnot, she began to pick up on my energy and situation, and her guides were showing her things about me. And she called out, she saw it. She saw the spell work. She saw a cause behind it and all the rest of that. And it was kind of uncomfortable because it was a close family member. And, but I, relayed the message and we started working on it. But there's always, because of one of the messages that I had received before, it was talking about some people in my camp that I would initially think were really, really on my team, but not serving my best interest. And I didn't think it was her, and I didn't want it to be her because I really, really love her. However, I'm learning to fine tune the spirit. So I had a little bit of a question mark there. Well, this reading that I was led to not only confirmed the situation, the family member involved, my son's sign, his son's sign, physical changes that I had commented on with him because of us not seeing each other all that often, and the fact that he was kind of tied to my destiny. She was like, there's something about Aquarius that's super important. Well, I ain't gonna give the whole thing away, but the only Aquarius in my chart is my part of fortune. And she called all of that out in the reading. The fact that he was kind of struggling with understanding that this family member had done that and just kind of wanted to be alone, but by the same turn was kind of concerned as to whether or not I would give up on the situation because of finding that information out, and where we were headed and what spirit is calling us to do, kind of confirming the fact that even though it's been a long time coming, this really is your person. This really is a divine union. Y'all really do have a mission that's bigger than both of you. And that's part of the reason why these people were doing all this stuff, because they selfishly wanted to keep this person all to themselves. They see your light for both of you, they see where y'all are headed, but they wanted control. And but that's, like I said, that's going to be handled. They're not going to succeed. This is where you're headed. There's some things, some changes, and some learning curve that he's still going through to tie up some things on his end. I'm tying up some things on my end. But meanwhile, on my end, spirit is kind of pushing me a little bit further out into the spotlight to begin to work into my purpose and using my gifts. The reading, she went all the way there, and I was like, wow, wow, it, talk about synchronicities. I have had a lot of readings that really, really resonate, but this one right here, on the heels of the things that I was seeing in meditation too, had me truly gobsmacked. But I'm gonna stop right here, and I'll go into some other stuff a little bit later. I hope you'll join me on the next one. Please make sure to give the video a thumbs up, follow or subscribe if you haven't, and until next time, peace and blessings to your soul family. Namaste.